Welcome back to another episode. My name's Steph and I'm your pod savvy guide. And guess what? This is my 1000th episode. It's crazy. Honestly, when I started podcasting, when I recorded that first episode, never did I. Getting to 1,000 wasn't even a goal. I didn't really have any goals with it. I just was excited to try something new. So I wanted to do a brief overview of how I went from one episode to now 1,000, which is it's exciting that I'm here. So just to take you back, we're now in 2026. I was thinking about 2016 in January. And that was a really transformative month for me because I quit my job, my career of working in assisted living with my old peeps. And I just knew I needed to do something else. And I didn't know what it was. And so for months, I did all these temp jobs. And then I had the opportunity to go work at Alaska in a fishing lodge. And Alaska's hard work. We're on this remote island in the middle of nowhere. And I started listening to podcasts, and these podcast hosts, guys, I was really depressed at the time because I didn't know what I was doing. It was raining every day. It was hard work. And literally I was crying every day as I'm scrubbing the toilets. I'm just bawling, But these podcast hosts became like friends to me, even though it was a one-sided conversation. I looked forward to those episodes, and I had to download them the night before because the Wi-Fi was very slow. And so I had to be very deliberate about what I would be listening to the next day. And I'm so grateful that I started listening to podcasts. Shout out to the Homers because they were guests and I was listening to audiobooks and they're like, why are you paying for that? Listen to podcasts. So you guys got me started. So thank you. But as I was listening to these episodes later on in the summer, I was like, wait, maybe I want to start a podcast. And I think the best thing that I did, honestly, was to say it out loud. I told two people. I told my friend Miranda, who was like, Steph, that's awesome. You're going to do it. And then I told another person, and they were like, oh, you know what I love about you? That you're a dreamer. And they weren't saying it mean, but in my head, I was like, no, I'm not a dreamer. I'm a doer. I'm going to do this, And long story short, it was a long process from when I had that thought to when I actually pushed publish on Memorial Day of 2017. It was about 10 months. And in that, there were a lot of fears of who am I to do this? I had people even be like, ooh, you don't have a journalism degree. Why are you starting a podcast? But before I pushed publish, I remember saying a prayer and being like, okay, I've worked really hard on this. This was the best that I could do. I don't want to take as much inventory of what other people are saying, whether it's good or bad. I just want to know that I did a good job. I did my best to share someone else's story, and that's all that matters, and it was sort of like me having that conversation with God of okay, this is how I want to go about podcasting. And I can honestly say that, yeah, when I have received criticism, no one likes criticism, but it's also I feel like starting out being I'm not looking for approval. I'm doing this because I want to, was the best way to move forward. And you guys, before that, I did not feel like I was tech savvy. I did not feel, and honestly, I didn't really have a hobby outside of people and throwing parties for people and my social life. And so this was really new to be okay, I'm learning this new skill, and I had to have a website, and I had to learn what a RSS feed was, and I have to add a hosting site. And nowadays it's so easy, and editing took me hours to edit one episode. The learning curve was steep. But even back then, I looked at and found everything on YouTube and I taught myself. And I remember when I pushed publish, being so excited to see that something that I created was on my phone. And the best advice I ever got was from my friend Imara. She was in marketing and she had a couple degrees in marketing, and she told me, because I texted it out to, like, everyone because I was really excited, and I was really excited for them to hear about these guests. And she was like, "Hey, Steph, like, when you send out this text," because she was one of the first people, she's like, "You should also be like, hey, if you listen, can you leave me a 5-star review?" And it was amazing how many people, like, left reviews and started listening and became listeners after that. I would, like, see people randomly and be like, "Oh, I love your show. I've listened to all the episodes." And I'm like, "You have?" You know? So that was the origin, and shortly after, I was loving it, so I started the Utah Fan Club podcast, which was really fun because we created a song for it all about Utah, and that was, like, written with, like, my family, and then we had a friend sing it, and it was just fun to get people involved with that, and I had a co-host with that, like, it would switch for every episode, and and then, where I was working, they were like, "Hey," like, I think I brought it up, like, "Hey, I'm doing these podcasts." And they're like, "Do you wanna do one for us?" And I remember I only did a few episodes there, but being like, "This is so cool that I'm getting paid to edit." And I remember bringing my equipment in, and, those interviews were a little bit more stiff because they were my coworkers, and also it was hard to talk about engineering projects, and I was it was, but it was, I was excited that I was getting paid for it, you know? Um, and then my dad, I gave him for Father's Day, one of the years, podcast, the Utah Real Estate Podcast. I would go after work and record with one of his escrow officers episodes with agents. And so we already had that up and going, and I decided to go work for him. And this is like the second point I have to bring up. First I was telling you about my origin, but secondly, I have to give a thank you to my dad, Kevin Shoell, because as I've been reflecting about my podcast journey, there's no way I would have been able to get to these 1,000 episodes without him bringing me on, and he had said, like, "Hey, it would be great if you could work with me," and I always thought it was like, but I was the one who was like, "Wait, are you serious? Because I would actually want to do this." And then it was like, "Wait, but nepotism, like, I'm gonna have to work harder, like, are people gonna accept me?" But I am so grateful for my dad, um, because this absolutely transformed my life, and I look at, those first couple months of 2020 before COVID, I was bringing in 18 to 20 people that I was cold calling to podcast, and it was so cool, and I was having the escrow officers as my co-hosts, and it was great, and then, COVID happened, and we switched things up, and we would all be in a corner recording 6 feet apart, and it was cool that we were able to interview these experts in the industry, and then we started interviewing government experts, and man, I was nervous. I was so nervous to have podcasting be my, like, job and do it professionally, and I honestly don't think that if he wouldn't have given me the opportunity, I sort of wonder if I would've stopped podcasting somewhere along the way, and just found a different hobby because that's what it was, as a hobby, and he turned it into a career for me. And not only that, he saw a bigger vision because before that, I was bringing my equipment into the conference rooms, and he would let me record my episodes at at his office, like, at night and on weekends, so it already made it feel more professional, but then he created a studio, and my sister Cammie and Mandy, they designed it, and we had a professional studio. And then, we did an interview with Tony Acosta. And afterwards, we're like, we should start a networking group for podcasters. And so we started the Utah Podcast Coalition. And the Utah Podcast Coalition, hands down, made me the podcaster that I am today. It taught me, as we were bringing on these experts, it upped my game. I was learning from the best of the best in my area. Even transferring and doing video podcasting using Riverside FM, that's something I learned from the coalition. But I'm so grateful for the coalition and that my dad was like, yeah, let's go for it. And that, like, podcasting, I don't think he realized how it would become a lead generator, but like how we did 450 episodes. And a lot of these episodes were with strangers. They were cold calls, or they were people that maybe we knew a little bit, but like that deepened the relationship. And so, hands down in my story, like, I'm just grateful that my dad believed in me and he trusted me enough, even though I was a hobby podcaster, that he trusted me enough to come and professionally have that as my title at his office. And that was really scary at the time. But I look at how much I've grown with that and how much I've been able to transition from audio to video. And that takes me to my third point, and that's that sometimes you're really good at something, you have it down. I was really good at audio in-person interviews, but after about 650 episodes, I knew I needed to pivot, and I knew I needed to learn video podcasting, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to be on camera. I did not want to learn how to edit video. I didn't like everyone was talking about this AI stuff, and I was like, it can't edit as well as I can. Yes, it can edit better. And learning something new was really hard and pivoting, but I think that was a huge factor at keeping me going to get to these 1,000 episodes. Also, it mixes it up. It makes you not bored. And I look all along. I was constantly pivoting and learning something new, whether that was starting a new podcast and learning how to manage 2 or 3 together, whether that was, when I started 52 Weeks, it was with 3 friends and we were doing a weekly series and it was at a specific time, learning how to do that. To learning how to gather podcasters together for the coalition. It just was cool to be able to embrace what I didn't know and learn something new. You don't have to keep your podcast the same as they were on that first episode. Every single show that I have has transformed the cover art, sometimes the titles, the premise of it, who we're interviewing. And so it's okay to learn and try something new. And then the fourth thing that I really want to talk about is, so I have this quote right here, and it's by Gordon B. Hinckley, and it says, "You have not failed until you have quit trying." And there was a period of my life that my personal podcasts, they sat there for years. And it was so embarrassing because I had about 20 episodes that I did 3 years before that were never edited. And partly because the audio was bad and I was like, okay, I'll fix that later. And it just kept on going to the back burner. And that was really humbling to finish those episodes and send an email and be like, I'm sorry, this took me 3 years. But honestly, that's what got me podcasting again. And then I had all these broken RSS feeds that I had to fix and try to transfer over. And, it really did feel like until I started my 100 days of podcasting in the fall of 2024, it felt like some of these podcasts that had been there for 2 years, 1 year, and I hadn't done anything, it just felt like they were gonna be over, and I felt embarrassed that I hadn't kept them going because you hear everyone that's like, "Be consistent," and, the stats of, how many podcasts out there, haven't been posted on in 30 days, and I felt embarrassed that for my full-time job, where I was podcasting, my personal podcasts, went to the back burner, and so this is my reminder to you that no one really cares. No one really cares where you're at. No one really cares how long it takes you. All that matters is you keep on trying. And if this is something that you want to do, I just did a a video about Jenna Kutcher that she decided it was time to put her podcast on the shelf. And, after 10 years, she's not going to be podcasting anymore. Maybe she'll come back to it. But I think it's good to reevaluate, why aren't you doing it? Is it because, something's broken? Is it because you feel guilty that you haven't posted these episodes? Would that get you going again? Or is it because you just don't want to do it? And if you just don't want to do it, that's okay to call it quits and be like, okay, I'm done. But in my case, I loved it. I wanted to keep going. And so I think that that was a big thing for me, to be like, "It's okay. It's okay that this season I fell off and that I'm gonna get back on." And I think it's relatable. And if you aren't getting paid for your podcast, if you don't have ads, you don't have sponsors, like, no one's really noticing if you're doing it consistently. And if they are, then you know what? That's on them. But, like, there's so many podcasts out there that I'm not like, has so and so posted this week?" So that's my plug with number 4. And the 5th point I want to talk about was just to thank my guests. All of these interviews that I've done, hundreds and hundreds of them, I'm so grateful for the person who sat across from me, for the person who was willing to share their expertise, willing to share their mistakes, willing to share their struggles, willing to share their triumphs, willing to give their advice. I absolutely have been changed by it. And I have a close friend who has told me, like, "Steph, I think the reason that you're like such a dreamer and you think you can like do things. Sometimes I feel like delusional that life. I'm like, oh yeah, like I won't, if I do this, if I work hard, I can do this, this, and this." She's like, "I think the reason you think that is because you're constantly talking to people who are doing the thing. You're constantly talking to people who have overcome challenges." And it's like you become like the 5 people you're around. But with podcasting, it's like you become like the hundreds of people that you're around, all of these conversations. And it's so true, and I absolutely I've said this so many times, but I love starting my morning with a podcast. I love having a 5 AM, a 6 AM podcast, doing them back to back, and it's like I just before I even go to work, it's like I feel, like, re-energized. I feel like, "Man, for just a second, I was able to step in someone's shoes and see their perspective. I was able to learn something. I was able to have a meaningful conversation where we're both focused. No one's distracted on their phones. We're listening and we're talking, and it just lights me up. Like, it gives me so much joy. And so I'm so grateful for all of those guests. And I'm so grateful for the guests that I messed up on, the guests that were very kind to me back in the day when I forgot to push record. Even when I started video and podcasting again, there was an episode I forgot to push record. I'm grateful for the kindness of the people who I'm thinking about forgetting to push record. I had to have people come back in and record. Even when I was doing it professionally at Title I, it was so embarrassing. But those people gave me so much grace. I'm grateful for the people that were kind, even when I got the episode to them months later, years later. I'm grateful. Like, honestly, as I think about it, I'm like, I just have so much love for the people that I've interviewed. And there's too many to like share every experience, but when you're sitting across from someone and they're sharing their hardest moment or they're sharing how they came to be who they are, how can you not just sit there and be in awe of them and be grateful to be hearing their story? So thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who accepted to be on the show, because you guys have absolutely 100% changed my life. Man, it's hard it's hard to do this and not, like, get emotional. Like, I was thinking about the guests, like, having all these faces pop up and these, like, raw experiences, especially those early episodes that I did in person that I was stumbling through and I didn't know how to ask questions. But the first show that I did, it's called Notable Peeps. And the tagline is interviewing remarkable people who are putting on their shoes, doing their best, and believing in the impossible. And regardless of if people have been on Notable Peeps, I would say that throughout the span of 1,000 episodes, I have absolutely talked to some notable peeps who are just doing their best in their corner of the world, and it's amazing to see. So, okay, let's move on to the last point, number 6, is now that I've done 1,000 episodes, what am I looking to do? for the future. And I don't think that, like, this year was definitely like a year that I was like, it was more about numbers, like doing 100 podcasts in 100 days and getting to this 1,000. And that sort of like propelled me forward. But the great thing about doing so many podcasts in such a short amount of time is now the floor has been raised. Like 4 or 5 episodes a week feels easy for me. And so I'm excited to just do those 4 or 5 episodes a week. I'm already like booked through January with a lot of these and into February, and to continue to refine these skills. But I think that like I got down the process of how to spend less time on admin and more time behind the mic. Like that's been my whole thing. Like, how do I like do this faster? And so I feel like it's not even I know I've gotten that down. And now for I feel like this next chapter, I want to teach women how to do that. I want to teach gals how to podcast and not have it overtake your life, and how to DIY it, because there's so many like people that are like, I'll do this for you. But I feel like with all the technology that I've talked about, it's really not that hard to do it for yourself. But I know that sometimes you just need someone to like hold your hand through it. And that's what I want to do. I want to do um like bring other gals on 100-day challenge with me, and have, you know, a community group where everyone can interview each other and talk about the things that they're struggling with. I want to do a live Q&A for that period of time for 100 days. Really, because also I feel like the stuff that I have created, that was a learning curve to like learn how to teach. But the people who have gone through, they're like, this has helped me. Like, and it's like step by step by step. So that's really my next phase, is to teach other gals how to spend less time on all of this and get their episodes out, and that done is better than perfect. And then for me personally, I want to now focus on and experiment and be like, now we got the process down. We got that simplified with the workflow and the automations and everything. How do we grow this? And how do we then teach other people how to grow it? And they're like, honestly, there's so much. I'm constantly getting ads for like, do this and do that and do this. But like, I want to experiment with everything. And I want to like be able to then put that in 100-day challenge for myself and then for other people. So I'm excited for that next challenge for me. And I've honestly never been about stats. And I think that's what's helped me get to 1,000 episodes, is because so many people look at their stats and they get depressed and they don't want to do anything. But there has to be ways to grow the podcast that's not spending a ton of money on ads. Like, I know that there's, doing Pinterest, and even Spotify has a new that you can add a video for reel. So I want to experiment with all of these with older episodes. I love doing experiments. And so I'm excited to see how to grow everything, because like, I know you can grow it by, like, putting $500 towards the ad, but to be honest, most DIYers, we don't wanna spend $500 if we don't know we're gonna get that return. And so, yeah, that's where my focus is for the next little bit. But, I'm so grateful for this 1,000th episode, and I want you to know, like, so this last week has been a challenge because I had 20 episodes left, and they were solo episodes. I left the solo episodes to the end, and I was sick of hearing myself talk. And so, like, yesterday at 3 p.m., I had 5 episodes left. And literally from 3 to 7, I did everything else besides record. It's like I just couldn't bring myself to record. And then I got 4 episodes done by 1 a.m. And I was like, okay, like, Steph, we have to like continue. And I was like, no, let's get a good rest. We want to be present for this 1,000th episode. And I'm so glad that I did, and that I was able to reflect. And like, I'm like, also, it makes sense that the last few were hard. Like, it is hard to record a bunch of episodes in a week. It is hard to do a bunch of solo episodes. And I just kept on thinking, mental, come on, we got this. But I guess in wrapping up, I just want to leave you with this reminder. that your voice absolutely matters. And if you're sitting here and you're like, okay, I really should start a podcast, do it right now. Pull out your phone, go to your voice memos, do an audio recording, or download the Riverside FM app. Like, get started today, because as you have that excitement, the best time to act is when you're like, okay, I can do this. And that fear doesn't creep in, and that, like, what are people going to think? Or I don't know the technology. Just get started. You will learn along the way. You will change along the way. Sometimes the idea comes as you're just in movement. And if you have a bunch of episodes that you haven't published, maybe like, okay, I'm not going to get that done. That audio is terrible. Maybe reach out to the guests and ask them if they want to record, or just send them an email saying, hey, I'm sorry, like that audio wasn't great. I lost the episode, but thank you for being on. Whatever you need to do to move forward. And if you're like, how my RSS feed was broken, my website was broken, what helped me was like days I was on, just not even on the phone, but chat help. So like with my website and with Spotify, they have like a help desk chat, and chatting with them to get it resolved. And usually they'll tell you what to do, or they'll do it for you, or give you the next steps. So do what you need to do to get it back going, because I honestly, if 2016 Steph, who's in Alaska washing dishes, totally like, what am I going to do with my life? If she could see me right now, she would be in awe. She would be in awe of all the times that I took myself out of my comfort zone. She would be in awe of all the hours I spent trying to figure out what to do. She would be in awe of the conversations that I had, the conversations that transformed me. She would be in awe that I kept going, that I didn't give up, and that I, from the very beginning, how I was like, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks. It matters what I think, that I'm doing this, that I'm proud of myself. She would be proud. And that's what I want for you. If this is what you want to do, if podcasting brings you joy, keep on moving forward. And if you need something to, like, you're feeling stagnant, you're feeling bored, maybe do a live podcast, bring on co-hosts, have a series that you're talking about different things. Maybe do the voice memos. There's a bunch of those programs where you can get people to share a story and put that clip in there. Whatever it is, get going today. Because I absolutely know that your audience needs your voice, your experience, your personality, your expertise. So get out there and start creating. And I will catch you next Saturday on another episode of Pod Savvy Guide. Holy cow, that emotion came out of nowhere. But seriously, thank you for listening to this episode. Thank you to everyone who's supported me. And I feel overwhelmed with emotion of how grateful I am to be a podcaster. And that gal in 2016 wasn't just a dreamer, but she was actually a doer.